Hello,
Good morning, Emma. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Let me just turn my camera on. I'm
Wow,
good.
look at that. You're surrounded and immersed.
Oh, yes. I'm surrounded by Seedlip and Acorn. Yes, I finally got our design team to sort out our Zoom backgrounds.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Talk about a not only an experiential conversation, but a truly immersive one.
Yes,
Oh, that's really nice. And it's the whole evolution of two different brands. Well, both your brands, but the
yes. Yeah,
and
so Seedlip Spice first, and then Garden, and then Grove. And
yes,
then Acorn, we launched all at the 3 time. And Acorn is 2 in May, and Seedlip was 5 last November.
2 in May, 5 in November. Happy anniversaries.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, I have to say, I don't have the 3 because I probably finished the first three, but I do have some of the new ones uh,
Yes,
right here. And not that I'm going to drink it all right now, but the nice thing is I could, and
yes,
I
you
can still
could.
I can still perform my finest later when I get back to work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
I must admit this morning because I'm still doing dry January and all my friends tell me that I'm the only person they know that still is doing it. Um, but I found this great website called The Dry Drinker that has all sorts of amazing non-alc things. And I was reading all these reviews in the Telegraph about nice sparkling non-alc wine. So I've ordered some things to try because I thought this weekend I should treat myself to some other non-alc. And there's such variety now and try some other things.
There's a lot of variety out. But I have to say that, when I first came across Seedlip a few years ago, well, good morning, firstly. We've already started and we haven't even introduced you.
Yes. Hello. Hi. Good morning. How
Hello,
are
good
you?
morning. And I think this just comes from the strength of actually two people enjoying, well, I enjoy your product very much and I have used it and I consume your product, well, probably since the start, actually, maybe about 4 years ago
Yeah.
when I first started my practice, aesthetics in Beaconsfield, and I guess I wanted to get focus. If I go back 7 years, 8 years ago, my mom and I wanted to do a mountain climb. She's an avid mountain climber, and
Wow.
she's done all the mountains. Everest Base Camp 3 times, Kilimanjaro twice, Fuji twice, all the rest. So she's good. Me, on the other hand, I haven't. So I guess when I wanted to train here in England, 5 in the morning, etc., up hills, I needed to clean up and be focused. So I gave up drinking for a year, and but it was difficult for me because I come from a drinking culture and a family. I enjoy the drink. My drink is gin, was gin, and I love the champagnes, etc.
Mm.
But there was little or no choice. Back then, especially not in Malaysia, you might get a non-alcoholic beer, and that's about it. Um, so yeah, so as soon as I came across Seedlip, it was like eureka moment. It was fantastic.
Completely.
And I know my husband, otherwise known as Mr. Aesthetics or Mr. Seedlip, as we know now, he consumes it and he's evolved with the brand, and so I guess it's him that's brought me to it. But no, I've enjoyed your product over the years. It's been fascinating to watch it evolve and to be part of it. And I guess now at Aesthetics, where I meet a lot of founders and creators of the technologies that we have at Aesthetics,
Mm.
and the world that I come in, as you know, is just fascinating, the science. And I love the science behind what I do. I also believe in a team approach. I can't do this alone. I want to spread the love. And with that in mind, I wanted to bring the brands and the founders to our patients with this forum called In the Consulting Room. So it's my professional initiative. It's a learning initiative for patients. So when they really understand, what they're coming to us with their presenting concerns, we can then integrate them with the learning process so that they enjoy their treatments. Some a little bit more punchy than others, but they understand the procedure as well. And so
Yeah.
when they then see their results, they enjoyed their journey in an experiential place, which is the clinic. But for me as a doctor, they're part of my journey as well, which I'm so appreciative of. But that's the medical side. From your side, what I thought would be fascinating is patients to really get to know another side of me, which are the things I really love, and your product just so happens to be one of them. So, Amber, I'd like to say thank you for this wonderful opportunity to be able to interview you. You are the COO of Seedlip. You are the world's first distilled non-alcoholic spirit, produced over 5 years ago, November.
Mhm.
So, congratulations on your anniversary and the evolution. But
Thank
we
you.
would just love to know a little bit more about you, and your role, where you came from, how it all evolved. Yes, do share.
So I would firstly like to say it's my absolute pleasure to talk to you. I'm a big fan of your clinic and of the work you do. And my journey really to becoming COO of Seedlip, I didn't really know what I wanted to do after school. I went traveling for a bit. I didn't go to university. I wasn't sure what I wanted to study. And I sort of through kind of luck to start with, or fate, I ended up working for a wine company called Berry Brothers and Rudd in their in-house PR department. They're the oldest wine merchants in England, and they had a brand called Cutty Sark Scots whiskey,
Yes.
and that really started me on my drinks path. And I've now got over sort of 25 years experience in the drinks industry. Um, Always very curious about new brands, and my interest was always taking a new brand and launching it and driving it to scale. Because there's so much you learn on that journey around the consumers, how to activate them, and what resonates with consumers. And I think I've always been lucky to work with brands that create an emotional connection with the consumer. And when I first met Ben in, I think, 2015, and I met him in a bar in Notting Hill, and he told me that he was creating Seedlip, and he showed me a drawing of the first bottle, which was Spice, which is the fox. And I was just so completely enchanted, firstly with the idea of a non-alcoholic spirit, because I was getting to the point in my life where I was thinking a lot more about my own health and wellness. I do a lot of yoga, and so was really interested in being able to still enjoy the same occasions that I do with alcohol, but having a choice sometimes not to drink alcohol. And Ben's story as well, Ben comes from a farming background and a design background. So it was just totally fascinating and enchanting. I then stayed in close contact with Ben, and he kept offering me a job, and I very stupidly kept saying no. But the whole industry was buzzing with this: someone's creating a non-alcoholic spirit. And there were a lot of naysayers and a lot of people saying it will never work. What a ridiculous idea. And then I finally actually applied for a job with Ben. He was looking for his first GM, and he asked me if I knew anyone, and I kept sending people his way. And then I said to my husband, I'm going to be so sad when someone gets that role at Seedlip, because I think that's what I want to do. I want to go and work on true innovation and in the non-out space. And so I put my hand up, and Ben said, finally. So nearly 4 years ago, we agreed to start working together. And it's been the most incredible 4 years. We have grown at such a pace. We're now available in sort of 35 countries. We have 80 employees around all across the globe, but with a big focus in the UK, the US, and Australia. And it's, our mission is to change the way the world drinks by solving the dilemma of what to drink when you're not drinking. And we really are. I think we've moved on. We are changing the way the world drinks. We've sold millions of cocktails now, and really connected with a lot of consumers who also had the same need state that Ben did. Ben, this came from a personal desire of Ben's, because he loves food. And he was at a very nice restaurant one evening about 6-7 years ago, and he was offered either a Diet Coke or a very sugary, sweet, kind of childlike non-alcoholic drink. And that was really where the sort of idea for Seedlip was born. And that was from his own personal need state. And when we launched Seedlip, it turns out there's lots of people all around the world that, for whatever reason, either don't want to drink that day, that week, that month, or don't drink at all. And we hugely believe in moderation. We like people that drink alcohol. Our liquids are complex and elegant, but everyone should have a choice. And when you take that choice, you should feel that you're not excluded from the same occasion, which I think we've all felt when we've gone to a party or gone to a dinner and drunk sparkling water all night, or been offered this sort of childlike disco drink. So it's very nice to have the choice, but still feel that you're part of the same occasion.
Thank you. And I completely can relate to a lot of what you're saying, because it's not a case of excluding somebody or trying to preach, I guess would be the word.
Mm-hmm.
And I never wanted to preach, hey, I'm not drinking, and everybody else should follow suit. It was just my personal choice, as I said, because I wanted to climb the mountain, and following that, I just wanted to focus, and I actually enjoyed the clarity of the focus,
Yes.
being able to do that. So I like the way your brand has just kind of integrated into a culture, within a population, and giving the choice of what to drink when you're not drinking as well. This couldn't have come at a better time, because we are doing this right at the end of January, and dry January, as you know, a lot of people go for. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe when dry January maybe started? Because I remember about 2013, no one spoke about it, 2013, 14. But when I started the practice, it suddenly became a little bit more, there was a lot more awareness about that. Do you have
Yeah,
any?
I think it started, and I'd need to check, but I think it started about 11 years ago, and it's kind of gained momentum, certainly over the last 5 years.
Yes.
But I think what's really interesting now is, we as a brand, we want to normalize not drinking. We want to even get to a point where it's not even like a non-alc section, it's just drinks that people choose based on the flavor or the taste. And if you think about the vegan movement 10 years ago, no restaurants would have offered special vegan dishes or have even considered vegans. And now every single restaurant pretty much where you go will have an offering for them. And we're hoping that's what happens with the non-alc category. And I think particularly this dry January, because everyone's in lockdown, I think it's now sort of about moving beyond dry January and just making sure that you are making consistent lifestyle choices, so that it's not just this big effort you do for 1 month and then you fall back into maybe your previous habits, but that it's ongoing, good self-care, moderation that you carry out throughout the year and ongoing, so that you make the right decisions and you really get to enjoy all aspects of your life, either with alcohol or without, or either with or without alcohol.
Thank you. Everybody wants to know, and patients have even asked me about, how did I begin that very first time? Where did it all come from? What was the initiative, the impetus behind it? And I would love to know, because you were there right from the very start of the creation and the evolution, and to where you are now in, 35 countries all around the world. Where did it all begin? Do you mind sharing with us the history and the story and
Yes.
the behind Seedlip?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben actually was living just down the road from Beaconsfield in Marlow in a tiny cottage in the woods, which we all visited actually about 2 years ago. He doesn't live there now, so I think the person who lived there was like, why are all these people outside this house? But he was properly sort of in the middle of the woods, and he discovered a book online called The Art of Distillation, which is from the 1600s. And this was really the early sort of Bible of distillation. And it talked about distilling non-alcoholic and alcoholic compounds, mostly for the use as medicine. And so you can find a copy of the whole book online. And so he started to tinker with herbs and spices that he was growing in his garden, with a tiny pot still in his kitchen, to see if he could make some of these non-alcoholic compounds. He comes from, on his mother's side, he comes from 300 years of farming background. So he knows a lot about plants and the botanical properties. And also nature is very much at the heart of everything we do with Seedlip and Acorn. It inspires all of our activations. It's our muse. And the creative that we launched in January was We Are Nature, which is about our sort of thinking and pledge to how we're going to support and protect the planet, and how nature will continue to be our muse. So he tinkered around in his kitchen through trial and error, came up with what he thought, I think, was quite an interesting liquid blend. Started the design work, because the other side of his family, his father comes from a design background, and Ben was actually running his own design agency. And then he started to talk to investors, and Ben is as brilliant a businessman as he is a creative, and he had the forethought to choose to go and talk to the largest drinks company in the world, which is Diageo, who have always been this incredibly supportive partner, even when they were the minority investor through Distilled Ventures. But he did, so the first liquid, so he then worked with a liquid scientist, because we couldn't really just use what he was making in his kitchen. But the first bottles he hand labeled in his house, and he drove himself to Selfridges. And I think the first order sold out in something like 3 weeks, the second order in 3 days, and then the following order, I think, an hour. And he then realized, I might be onto something here. He very foolishly put his mobile phone number on our first website, which he promptly then had to change. And we had inquiries from like 100 countries in the first 6 months. So just extraordinary. And, you know, the category now, if you look at the non-alc spirits category, there's about 250 brands in Europe. And 5 years ago, there was one, which was Seedlip. So just so exciting to be involved in true innovation and create a new category.
Yeah, congratulations. I love the fact that this is so close to home, meaning I live here in Beaconsfield, Hampshire. This is a global international brand that's actually originated right here in, as you say, his cottage. And I'm sure he had probably little or no idea at the time that when he drove to Selfridges to do that, it would be this big.
Oh, no, he is in total awe constantly of what's happened. And every now and then, you know, we'll do a global Zoom call with sort of 80 people on, and he's always like, oh my God, there's so many people. And the brand is so big now. And our office, we haven't been in our office because of COVID, but our office is actually in Beaconsfield because we wanted to be sort of in the countryside, but also close enough to London and airports and things.
And I'm sure the cottage in the country has almost become a tourist destination, just like Shakespeare's original home.
Maybe one day.
One day, there's a thought. But you talk very much about the emotional connection with your consumers, and I think when you're growing this type of global brand, there has to be a lot of data, consumer insight into what you're developing, really. And where can you see this going? Because it started off over 5 years ago. You are where you are now in 35 countries. You know, what does the future look like for Seedlip?
So I think, you know, Seedlip, we always want to stay at the forefront of innovation. We launched Acorn, which is our sister brand, which will be 2 years old in May. Yes. And Acorn, again, is the aperitif occasion. And a great range of non-alcoholic aperitifs. So I think we will always want to keep at the forefront of innovation, and we will look at further innovation on Seedlip as well. We also, in the last 2 years, we created a Seedlip RTD, which I believe your customers have been enjoying sort of throughout the month of January. And so making sure that we constantly innovate. And also, I think there's something about making sure that the quality and the standard is really high. You know, we take an awful lot of care and attention over the journey we go on with our liquids. We distill each individual botanicals separately and then blend them. And I think that it's great that there's lots of new brands coming into the category, but it's making sure as well that we, for the consumer, are still giving them the highest quality liquid and flavor experience.
Absolutely. And I think you're meaning these ones, which we've been giving to,
yes,
we haven't yet. These have all been beautifully packaged up by my team, and they're ready to go for dry January, but obviously we've been closed.
Yes.
So they're ready to go for dry February and March. Great. And April and so forth. But we have put these together, and I have to say that they're beautiful. I've tried them over the last, for a long while now, and yeah, they're exquisite over ice. So when it comes to a day in the life of Emma Wykes, COO of Seedlip, do you mind sharing with us what you do on a day-to-day basis? I'm very fascinated about what you do because it's a very different world, but I think there's a lot of shared comparisons, shared analogies.
Yes, I mean, it's never a dull moment, basically. I think, you know, the title COO, which is lovely and very grand, you know, Chief Operating Officer, really means that you are quite the generalist. So you do everything from, you know, managing a global business, a global P&L, and leading the senior team. But we also have a big focus on people in our business, and we truly believe that the people and the team are as important as the brand and the culture that we create. And although the brand and our timing with Seedlip and Acorn, you know, are impeccable, it's also having really good team members that work around you. So I spend a lot of time thinking about our people, making sure that we're kind of we're developing them in the right way, because Seedlip has grown so fast. There has just been endless opportunity. So I do everything from, you know, the very high level global view And then every now and then, if there's some detail or some challenge, I will swoop down and really get into the detail, whether that's in ops or finance or with our team members or a particular market, which might be, you know, with 35 countries, you will have different cultures and the brand will behave in a different way depending on sort of where it is. So I get to have the sort of bird's eye view, but I also have to get into the detail every now and then. And then even I'll even do things like I met with our office manager in December before we were locked down again to prepare everyone's Christmas presents and packs, because that's just quite a nice hands-on thing to do. And there's all sorts of other things that we've created as part of our culture. So when we were still working out of an office, we would regularly do afternoon walks. We would take the whole team to go and do something outside in nature. We did some work with the Chiltern Rangers, who are a local charity, and helped them clear some forest and some land in Burnham Beeches. So, I mean, just really, you have many hats, and you also deal with a lot of problems. I definitely sort of swing between looking to the future and driving the business and the brands forward, and then dealing with whatever today's problem is.
That is a lot of hats, because it covers so many different arenas, as you say. And I think that just comes from your 20 plus years of doing exactly this, right? You don't have that level of experience without the time base as well, which comes back to the first point when it came to introducing Emma Wykes. Do you mind me asking what your friends, your colleagues, your family thought or said to you when you said to them that you're leaving your original world where you were marketing with alcoholic brands and moving into the non-alcoholic category? Do you mind me asking what they might have said to you?
So a lot of my drinks industry colleagues were, some of them were quite rude, some of them were supportive, but some were quite dismissive of the idea. I'd been offered a role with an alcohol brand, and a role that I'd been kind of looking at for 2 years, just as I spoke to Ben about his GM role. So I had to turn that role down. And I can remember that person was sort of, you're making a big mistake. This non-out thing is never going to catch on. My family are pretty supportive of kind of whatever I've done. I think they too were quite skeptical. My father now is probably one of the biggest Seedlip drinkers I know, and he last summer stopped drinking, and every time I see him, I have to bring some Seedlip for him, which really shows the sort of age range and reach of the brand. But yeah, I definitely had some doubters, and so it's very nice 5 years in to sort of say, I think I backed the right idea.
Absolutely. And it's great to always have your family support. I said to my father how I'm carrying out my conversation interview with you, and he was so intrigued about the fact that I was now drinking a non-alcoholic gin, and he said, "Oh, bring some home when you next come back," so I will. That's his tipple as well, amongst a few other things. And I think what you said about really understanding your consumers is interesting. What I also like is the fact that it creates a choice not just for a consumer here in England, but also on a global basis, because there are cultural trends and there's different demographic trends. And I believe in that even here, just in England. When I consult with patients, you really have to listen to understand what they want. But then on the history and the examination, where we do imaging and diagnostics, etc., it's translating what they probably may want to what they actually need. And
yes,
that's just my world. And really getting to grips with the skin health, and then putting the formulations with the topical skincare, etc., has to be very, very focused. I want to talk to you about the ingredients whilst I'm talking about topicals, because you mentioned that it all comes from the concept of nature. Ben is very focused on that, and I love that concept. Could you share with me some of the key points in the ingredient formulation, because you're very precise about that, and that is one of the strong USPs as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, so we launched Spice first, and Spice is our sort of kind of woody, spicy variant, which has things like cardamom in, and 2 different kinds of bark, which are all distilled separately. And we, if you're making a gin, for example, you put all of the botanicals together. either in a still or in a sort of big tea bag type thing, and you distill them all together with Seedlip. And we've always been very clear that we are not a non-alcoholic gin. None of our range contain juniper, but we very much sit in that occasion, and you drink us with tonic. But if you look at something like Garden, so Garden, when we first launched Garden, it had peas from Ben's family farm in it, and we used to have to go and hand pick the peas up in Lincolnshire. I think the second year there was about 18 of us hand picking peas that then had to be frozen instantly to maintain their sweetness, and then taken to the distillery. And so, and also in Garden we have hops and hay, and the hay also used to come from Ben's family farm. So a lot of care and thinking about the provenance of the ingredients. Ben, we have allspice berries in spice, and Ben went to visit the farm in Jamaica to really sort of check the provenance and to check that they were doing all the right practices. And then in Grove, we have lots of different citrus from all over the world. And I think the way that Ben always approaches this is he starts with a flavor note that he wants to create, or an experience. So he'll start with those different flavors. And it's quite interesting because Ben hasn't drunk alcohol for years. And so he's often trying to think about an alcoholic cocktail, having maybe never drunk it or drunk it for years. So he'll work very closely with Claire Warner, who's the founder of Acorn, to make sure we're hitting those right flavor notes, but making sure that we understand where the ingredients come from and how they're farmed and how they're looked after is really important.
Thank you. And you mentioned the distillation process. And the distillation process, when I've learned more and more about Seedlip, is done in copper stills.
Yes, so some of it is distilled in copper stills, and most stills are made from copper. And I was doing some research into why, and I think it's because it's a very hygienic, clean way to distill, and it also is a great convector of heat as well.
That's right.
Because you use lots of copper as well in your products.
Well, interestingly, in our botanical formulation, which is our main skincare line brand, in practice, copper and copper tripeptide growth factor, they're key ingredients within it. Copper is a great heavy metal for actually stimulating collagen. It's a regenerative material as well. So, it's been used for hundreds and hundreds of years, as you know. So it's very medicinal. You have patients with rheumatoid arthritis, they wear copper bracelets. So I have a fascination with copper. And because I come from a background of plastic and reconstructive surgery, predominantly in burns, I believe in copper impregnated sheets to heal the burns wounds when they're in their healing phase. So when I opened my practice, S-Thetics in Beaconsfield, copper is our theme color. Copper is my color. It's around the clinic. It's within my brand. I do this because that's how the brand looks. So copper is very deep ingrained in my heart as well. So I found that fascinating when you brought that up. I love the fact that you've been out to a field in Lincolnshire and pick the peas yourself.
Oh yes, it was. I know far too much about peas, and I shall give you a bit more information about peas. So you get a 3-day picking window of peas because you want to pick them at their sweetest. And so we were sort of on tenterhooks for about 2 weeks, waiting to hear from Ben's uncle when we could actually go and pick the peas. And then we all went up there, and it was sort of mid-June, and it rained that day, and it was cold, and we were in this field for about 8 hours. But it felt great though to have our whole team there and really touching the ingredients that go into Seedlip.
Do you still need to do that?
I think production has far outgrown a sort of a group of us hand-picking peas in the field.
It's a good story to tell your new employees joining, because that's really important that they fall in love with the legacy, where it all began. And now that you're 5 years plus on and you're a global brand, it's keeping those first initial stories on those true values and immersing the new team members within that. And I also believe in, I love your company culture, by the way, everything that you talk about it. And I love my team that I have here in Beaconsfield, and I immerse myself with them every day. So I believe in a multidisciplinary team approach. I love spending time with them, and we want to embrace respect, integrity, professionalism, and all of our everything that we do to deliver a scientific result and one that you can enjoy in an experiential place. Could you please share with me some of the key things within your company culture? Because I would love to know more about that.
So we have what we call the 3 Ps, which is politely, properly, and at pace, and that's really the sort of pillars of our culture. And we have politely because we believe in good manners, both internally and externally. Saying please and thank you costs someone nothing, and manners are really important. We have properly because we believe that you should do few things really well and make sure that you simplify them, because as human beings we love to overcomplicate, and we want our execution of everything we do to be very simple, have great clarity, and to look and taste great. And then pace is around moving at pace, not procrastinating, not overthinking. And you can have properly and at pace. It's quite a good natural tension. So those are really the kind of the bedrocks of our behaviors, I guess. I think our culture, if you were to distill it down into one thing, it's about respect, and that's about respecting your fellow co-worker, but also anyone that you interact with. So we have guidelines around meetings and emails, which is all based on don't waste people's time and respect their time, and make sure that if you're interacting with someone, it's as clear and as simple as possible, so that they're really clear on kind of what the action is. And the way that culture manifests is in things like we have Nature Week, where we close the whole business for a week in the summer so that everyone is off together, so that they can go and enjoy time in nature and spend time with their friends and family. We regularly make sure that we provide them with workshops around things that will help them in their roles, but also just things that are interesting on a human level. We've had some wonderful talks from people that were working on some of David Attenborough's documentaries, and also people that work within sort of architecture inspired by nature. So yes, it's making sure that people that work at Seedlip have this rich experience, because Ben's vision was that everyone who works at Seedlip should learn what it's like to run a business and a brand, so that they can hopefully go on and do that for themselves if they wish to. So hopefully we're going to have a huge amount of future entrepreneurs running around sort of as part of the Seedlip alumni.
Love that. I love the fact that you're really immersing, all of your employees, irrespective of role, seniority, right from the very beginning, in a full 360, because it's not just about having that drink and creating it. It's about everything that it can potentially belong with and sit with. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to then the next phase for Seedlip, now that you're in 35 countries, and you mentioned that one of your 3 biggest markets is then Australia. So where to next? What's next for Seedlip?
Well, we were acquired by Diageo about 18 months ago. So, the world is our oyster with them as our partner. Yes. And Diageo, I think are active in 180 countries and have this huge global business. But I think it's about making sure that we still build the brand with integrity and at pace, but we don't have to be all things to everyone, and we don't have to be everywhere. And it's just making sure that we pick markets where there is an interest in non-alc. And also it's always about giving consumers choice. So I think over the next, if I got into a time machine and looked sort of 5 years into the future, hopefully Seedlip and Acorn will be household names. I'd like to think that there'll be some more variance in both ranges, and that we've just reached, a lot more consumers so that they have a choice, really.
Absolutely. It's all about the choice. And when I speak with our patients as well, it's giving them the opportunity to choose whether they'd like something completely non-invasive, whether it's topical treatments, high-tech facials. There is so much that we can actually drive and achieve by understanding the history, the clinical examination, and even just the strength of using topicals and reassessing how their skin cycle is changing. We've got high-tech facials and now lasers as well. And just like how you mentioned, Ben, and yours, how do you say, interest in everything lies with nature. And for me, nature comes from home, which is actually the body. And we
Mhm.
can elicit great tissue responses just by stimulating the body with light energy, lasers, in fact, light energy, and you're triggering what we call a natural wound healing response. And a lot of people still don't understand that, but I understand that really well because I come from that burns background. And you know, on a note now, because it is the end of January, and we are about to go into February. It's a dull gray day out there, and there's a lot going on in the world. But it's a beautiful part of the world to be in, and I'm ever so grateful for everything that I have here. And when we reopen, bringing our patients back and gifting them these beautiful, beautiful treats that we have. I love gifting. It makes me feel great. And I'd love for you to end on a note of positivity in this time, Emma. Anything
Mhm.
to share with our audience?
I just think, life has been tough in the last 12 months because of COVID. And I think all of us have learned such resilience and grit. And I think, winter is tough, but it is the end of January. February is a pretty short month, and then we'll be in spring. And spring is really when everything comes to life. And I would like to think as well that we will have some of our freedom back as well. So I personally feel very, very positive. The evenings are getting lighter. Um, and 2021 can still be a fantastic year for all of us. It's just about the mindset we bring to it.
Absolutely.
Um, and just really understanding that the world is different, but that it's how we react, and how we think about our place in the world that can make all the difference.
Absolutely. So, on that note, I have got a few things in front of me because I think we should actually salute and toast the rest of 2021 because it's all about the mindset. I think it
Yeah,
is going to be an awesome year. So, I've actually got two things, and I might need
great.
your help with one of them, which is opening the bottle of this.
Yeah, I've got. That's what I'm going to drink, which is the perfect. It's the perfect marriage between seedlip and acorn because our Negroni is two acorns and seedlip blended together to make the perfect non-alcoholic Negroni.
This looks incredible. So, you need to share with me first how I get in because it's really strong.
Yeah, there should be a little tear
A
on the
little
plastic
there.
top.
Come on, let me find that. Okay, there we go. Give me a second. And I love the fact that they've been packaged so you don't need to mix it. You don't need to blend the macaroni. That's really unusual how it comes in a two-serve.
Yep, you can just pour it straight over ice and then garnish with an orange peel.
Just like how she's done. She's a pro. And I have to say, what I loved when the days that we could go to beautiful bars, and I don't know if you've heard of this hotel called the Mondrian Hotel.
Yes,
It's
lovely.
you've heard of the Mondrian, and they've got one of the most beautiful gin bars there, and your product is there. So I was so happy that I got to take my whole team out, and I got to enjoy the night with them, having your product there. So mix it.
Cheers.
There we go. It is officially 10:30 in the morning. And I would like to say cheers, Emma. Thank you for a fantastic session.
Cheers.
Really
Thank you.
smells incredible. It smells like
Mm,
a thing.
it's so delicious.
It actually tastes like the real thing.
Yeah, it really does. It's just so flavorful, and I love things that taste really bitter.
It is. You've got all of those tastes, as you say, complex and interesting. It makes you kind of drink it and go, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my friends really loves this drink. Really and she likes drinking a lot of it. So I have to make sure that she integrates a little bit of this so she can consume.
Yeah, and you can also lengthen this with soda or
Okay,
or alcoholic bubbles if you wanted to.
nice. I love that. So it's been blended with this, yeah?
So it's acorn bitter and acorn aromatic, blended with seedlip spice.
Very nice. Lovely. Thank you for sharing that with me. Is this your tipple, by the way? I get the impression it is.
Yes, I'm a big fan of its alcoholic sibling, but I honestly think that ours rivals any alcoholic one, and I could happily drink this instead. But yes, I think Negronis and margaritas are probably my favorite cocktails, and you can make both of those without alcohol now.
And I also love the fact on your website, you've got a whole cocktail menu. And one of the next ones I'm going to try is your espresso martino.
Yes.
That's next on my agenda. But, to end the year on the clean spirit, which is my traditional. So it's your plain seedlip and tonic, really. So
Yeah.
Emma, have a great year ahead. Thank you so much for the opportunity to get to know you a little bit more and all about Seedlip, the brand. I'd also like to wish Ben and all of your team a fantastic 2021. And here's
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate talking to you today. Thank you.
You're welcome, Emma. Thanks very much.